A good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Wonderful welcome. Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach, we learn Parshas Vayechi, getting ready for Shabbos Chazak, as we conclude Chumash Bereshis for Shnas Tavshin Pei Aleph, a very challenging year. And as always, we give tremendous thanks to TorahAnytime.com for this global platform to teach Torah all over the world, and to Chazak for publicizing the shir. And I want to thank you for responding to sponsor the shir earlier in the week. So the shir is being sponsored by my dear Talmidim Shimon and Sarah Klein of Staten Island. L'ilui Nishmas Fradel Bas Osher Anshel. Haneshama should have an aliyah. She should have a lichtige Gan Eden. She should be a melitzis yosher for her family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. The shir is also sponsored by my long-time tape and CD Talmud, Yitzhak Grossman and family. L'ilui Nishmas Bracha Bas Rav Moshe Yitzchak. Neshama should have an aliyah. He should be a Melz Yosher for his family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. Should have a lichtige Gan Eden in honor of Yaakov Grossman's bar mitzvah. And I just got in also an anonymous sponsor with the tefillah that in the schus of the shir, all the many older singles in Klal Yisrael should find their shidduch b'mheira b'yameinu. A good shidduch. Yaakov Avinu, in a tremendous show of gratitude to the Rabbeinu Shalom, says to Yosef towards the end of his life, Ra'o fanecha lo filolti. To see your face, I did not hope. That's the way Rashi learns. I did not think. But Hashem not only showed me you, but He showed me your wonderful children, Ephraim and Menashe. So tzaddikim, many of the mefarshim render lo filolti to mean that Ra'os panecha lo filolti, I never davened. It says by Chizkiyo that he stood by the kir and pilel, he davened. So Yaakov Avinu says, Ra'oi fanecha lo filolti, I didn't daven because they told me that Yosef was ripped asunder, and you're not supposed to daven a tefillah shav. Once you know that the person is not alive, we're not mispalel for a nace. We don't daven a tefillah shav. So he says, Ra'oi fanecha lo filolti. However, the Sefer, and by the way, the Ritz from Volozhin learns that pshat. But the Sefer Toldos Chaim makes a diak in the pasuk. You know, when you're in yeshiva, you learn how to scrutinize every word. And if you look at this pasuk, the Toldos Chaim says the word fanecha seems to be superfluous. It could have said ra'oischa lo filolti. I didn't pray to see you. What do you mean ra'o fanecha, to see your face? What does that come to add? So he says that Yaakov Avinu was expressing as follows. He said, even if a miracle happened, a miracle could happen, and somehow you recovered and you survived, the fact that I didn't see you for such a long time means that you grew up maybe in slavery, maybe in a very foreign and hostile culture. And when a person is in a sviva, an environment for so long, they're affected by this environment. And therefore, even if you were alive, I could not hope that panecha, your pneumius, that your pneumius was intact, that your spirituality was intact. Or like the Yismach Moshe says, I didn't think that I'd be able to look at your face because you're not allowed to look at the face of a Rasha. The Zohar says, for that reason, you don't look at a person that is in a state of anger. Right? You're not supposed to see a person that's when they're angry. And we don't look at a Rasha. So, I didn't think I'd be able to look at you. But, he says, Hashem not only allowed me to look at you, your panemius was intact, your Yosef Atzadik, but he also showed me Esarecha. And as the Todas Chaim says, the way to know the panemius of a person, the way to know if a person is good in the inside is to see how their children turn out. You see, if a person practices a robotic, superficial Yiddishkeit, a Yiddishkeit where he or she does things only because of public pressure, because they feel they have to, because they have to fit in, but there's no feeling in it, then that doesn't translate into the children. That's a very, very big yesod. Yaakov Avinu says, when I see children like Ephraim and Menashe with a radiating a warmth of spirituality, then I know, Yosef, that your pneumius, that your inside is still intact, and that your Yiddishkeit is not because you're trying to please me and to make it look good. We have to know that there was a time that in every home there was a picture of Sir Moses Montefiore, that great Baal Tzedakah, and Rav Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, the Kovner Rav. Now, when I was growing up, there was a picture of Rav Moshe and Rav Yaakov, right, maybe the Satmar Rebbe, right? But then there was a time that every house had a picture of Rav Pam, right? And there was a time every house had a picture of the Kovner Rav and Sir Moses Montefiore. Rav Yitzchak Elchanan Spector asked on what we say in davening on Shabbos. V'shamrei Yisrael sa Shabbos. The Bnei Yisrael should keep the Shabbos. La'asos es Shabbos, to make the Shabbos l'doraisa. So Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector asked, isn't that repetitive? Isn't that redundant? V'shamru Bnei Yisrael sa Shabbos. La'asos es Shabbos. Isn't that a redundancy? So Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan said that it's telling you what kind of a Shabbos should you keep. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael as a Shabbos, you should keep a Shabbos, such a Shabbos, with warmth, with family time, with hislavis. La'asais as a Shabbos l'doraisam, to ensure that the Shabbos will continue to your generations, to your children. It should be such a Shabbos that your children say, I can't live without such a Shabbos. And that's what we're saying. You could see the quality of your Avodas Hashem by how your children develop, by how our children develop. And I wanted to suggest that this is perhaps, al pidrush, a homiletic understanding in the famous Maimer Chazal in the second parak of Masechta Shabbos. Haragol bener, hami and loibanim talmidei chacham. What does that mean? Haragol bener, one who frequents with candles, with the Neiros Shabbos and the Neiros Chanukah, and is careful with them. In all ways, there are many ways to be careful with candles, to light on time, to make sure that they're beautiful, that the husband and wife get in the act together, the husband preparing the wicks and lighting them and then putting them out. A wife comes to the candles already dressed in a nice Shabbos clothing or Shabbos robe, all ready. Right? There's many ways to be Ragel B'ner. But a Ragel B'ner, Avin Leibanim Talmidei Chacham. So I wanted to suggest, Haragel B'ner, if somebody lights a fire, in other words, their spirituality, their avodas Hashem is not lackluster. It's not dull. It's not tziyotzezayin. Haragol bener, if there's the fire of passion of his slavas in what they do, havyin loibanim talmidei chacham. that makes for children that are Talmidei Chacham. And I'll tell you a story. In pre-war Europe, some people wanting that their children should succeed in the arena of secular advancement sent their children to the gymnasium, which was considered, because of its influences of its environment, it was considered very dangerous. So there was a Vishnitzer Chassid who had gifted children, and he enrolled his children in the gymnasium. So the Frierdiker Vishnitzer Rebbe, when he saw them, he said, if you don't remove your children from the gymnasium, please don't come to my court anymore. Please don't appear at my tish. So the father, who thought he was doing the right thing, of course listened to the Rebbe and stopped coming, and instead went to the Rebbe's brother. Now the Hasidim, knowing that he was banned from the other court, thought that the Rebbe's brother wouldn't accept him. But the Rebbe's brother accepted him and gave him kavod on Shabbos, and then he asked him if he could stay over and take a walk with him on Sunday, which was a very big honor. So of course the Yid did. The Rebbe took him for a walk, and he said, I remember when I was young, we had a private malamed, a private teacher, that taught us indoors. And when it came close to Pesach, we had to go outside in the yard because they were cleaning for Pesach. And we young boys in the yard, in the sun, with the birds, we couldn't concentrate. So the malamed saw that we weren't concentrating, so he turned to the trees, which were yet barren, without leaves or anything, and he told us he was an expert at trees. By the way, the study of trees, I learned a new thing. It's called dendrology. There's botanists and there's agronomists, but the study of trees is called a dendrologist. So he told them which tree was a fruit tree, which tree was an apple tree, which tree was a pear tree, and of course, we couldn't tell. But then came later on, 2 months later, we all knew, because we saw from one tree growing apples, from one tree growing pears. He told this man, you should know, we could tell a person by the way their children grow. That's the way we tell the pneumius of a person. The chassid took the lesson and removed his children from the gymnasium. So we have to know, when Yaakov Avinu said to Yosef that Ra'ofanecha loy filolti, I didn't hope to see fanecha, a pneumius in you, after all these years that you were away from Yiddishkeit. But Hashem showed me your descendants, and in them I see that your pneumius is intact. Like they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. By the way, before we analyze this pasuk any further, it's interesting that when Yaakov says Hashem showed me your zarecha, he doesn't say V'hinei hera osi Hashem, the midas harachamim. Although there was a great midas harachamim, that although Yosef was sold into slavery and put into a pit, he survived and he had such wonderful children. But Yaakov over here uses Elikim, midas hadin. So on the simple pshat is that Yaakov said, yes, I got to meet my Eniklach, but it came with a cost. I had to leave Eretz Yisrael and go into Galus and start the bris bein abesarim. So v'hinei hera oisi elikim gam esarecha. It came through midas hadin. But I think that Yaakov, although I didn't see anybody speak about this, but I think that Yaakov is alluding to another aspect of midas hadin. When he saw Ephraim and Menashe, and he asked, who are these children? And Yosef showed him that Osnas carried around her what Yaakov gave her around her neck, that Ani Osnas bas Dina bas Yaakov, So Yaakov realized that these children came about through a big midas hadin, that Dinah had to be violated by Shem and have Osnas. And that was these children's mothers. So it came about through a din, through the suffering of Dinah, through the suffering of Osnas that was removed to the family and sent down to Mitzrayim. So that's also the aspect of Hine Hera Oisi Elikim Gam Esarecha. Now, Yaakov Avinu said, Ra'ofanecha loy filolti, and as we said from the Ritz from Volozhin, it means that to see you I didn't pray, because they said Taraf Yosef, and therefore, as far as I knew, you were ripped asunder, and it would be a tefillah shav to pray for you. Now, Yaakov is mentioning this in gratitude to Hashem, because normally in life, in order to achieve anything, we need tefillah. Now, this is an important fundamental of being a yid. Remember, we are a people of tefillah. Ani svilasi, David HaMelech said, Ani svila. That's how he described himself. We know that it says, Amzu yitzarti li tilasi yisaper. That's why the Rebbeinu Shalom created Klal Yisrael. As a matter of fact, the name Yisrael is an anagram of Shir Kale, a song to Hashem. We are Yehudim. We are people that give thanks. That's who we are. And all the way in the beginning of the Torah, it says that the grass did not grow yet. Why didn't the grass grow? Because Lohim to Hashem, because of Adam Ayin Lavadas Hadama. Because there was no man, Rashi says, yet Lavod, Eza Avoida, Shibalev, Eviyam Tefillah. There was no man yet to pray. To get things in life, we need to pray. It's a big revelation. People that never pray, they don't know how much better their lives can be if they pray. As Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, the venerable Rav of Yerushalayim, said succinctly, Hakol zokuk l'tefillah. Everything needs prayer. Or Rab Shamshin Pincus put it a different way. Rab Shamshin Pincus used to say that Hashem doesn't get involved in the personal details of our lives unless we ask Him to. And Yaakov Avinu said that this is a special chesed to the Rebbeinu Shalom, that even though Ra'ol Fanecha Loi Filoti, because I thought Yosef wasn't alive anymore, yet the Rebbeinu Shalom allowed me not only to see him, but to see my Einiklach. Now, I've mentioned this in the Shiurim in the past, but it's so important that I want to repeat it again. Rav Daniel Travis gives an absolutely terrific practical eitzah for a person, and I'm telling you that this could improve your daily tefillah tremendously. He says that we know that we could insert prayers, personal prayers, in our own language before we say Yil Ratzon Imrei Fi at the end of Shemona Esrei. So if you daven Shemona Esrei 3 times a day, so then at the Yil Ratzon Imrei Fi of Mariv, you should think to yourself, what do I need from Hashem till Shachris? I should get along with my wife and children. Shouldn't have any friction. I should sleep well and not toss and turn. I shouldn't be disturbed by troubling dreams. I should utilize my time well. Right? So you can have that in mind. Yil Ratzon Imrei Fi. Have in mind just till Shachris. At Shachris, you'll again have in mind. You'll get up in the morning, and when you daven Shachris, before Yil Ratzon Imrei Fi, you could say, Hashem, let me have a good commute, let me find parking, let me get good customers, deal fairly with my clients, right? If you're a housewife, Hashem, let the children make the bus, nobody should get sick, I should have an easy day, until Mincha. And then by mincha, you have a mind until Marav. Now let's say you'd have a mincha, Marav, one right, you straddle Shkia. So in mincha, you could have a mind, Hashem, help me have kavanah in Marav. There's always things to have in mind. But this way, we get Hashem intimately involved in our lives at all times. The pasuk Ra'o fanecha lo filolti. The way Rashi, the way the Targum Yonissim and Uziel says, I didn't think I would ever see you again. When I read this pasuk, it triggers a very powerful personal memory for me. Because I remember, talking about almost 50 years ago, I remember that by my bar mitzvah, my father, Olav Shalom, told me, my father was not a wealthy man. We always felt wealthy. That was something wonderful about my father, and Tibaru L'chaim, my mother, gave us, that we always felt wealthy. We always felt that we weren't missing, but he wasn't a wealthy man. You see, my father grew up in the school of Auschwitz. On Shavuos, he went to Auschwitz in the second Seilischer transport, and that day when they arrived, they gassed his father, mother, 4 brothers, and 1 sister. The Nazis, Yamach Shemam v'zichron l'deira in Eilam. He had a double yahrzeit, actual yahrzeit, on Shavuos. And after the war, he went through the death march, he was liberated by the Americans, and he found himself a double orphan with no family. And the Germans, that were tremendously trying to make some overtures, offered these boys a chance to learn a trade. My father took them up on it. He went to Berlin, we have a picture, and he learned the leather trade. And he came to America, and for 30 years he went to Carter's Leather Goods, and he was the foreman of a factory in Manhattan. A very hard job. I remember he got up and davened in the first minyan in the Svadish Shul, and then went on the train, and he had 80 Afro-Americans underneath him, and he wouldn't get home till 7 o'clock in the night, wiped out. And yet, he made for me a magnificent weekend bar mitzvah in the Pine View Hotel up in the Catskills. That was one of the fancy hotels in those days. And he told me that, I remember still, he told me that I never thought that I would live to get married, and that I would have a child that I would make a bar mitzvah for was the furthest thing in my mind. And that's Ra'o fanecha lo filolti. He said, to see your face, I never hoped. I never thought it would be possible. Now, on this pasuk, there's an interesting Chazon Yeshaya. Chazon Yeshaya says that it's brought down in the Kadmoinim, in the early Sfarim, that if somebody is with a Goya, then it will show on their face. Their face will have a greenish complexion. There is a way to remove it, and that's to drink a brew made from the herb Iker. But it's called Iker because it causes a person not to be able to have children. So therefore, Yaakov, who knew that his son was very handsome, Ben Peres Yosef, who was a charming son, then Peres Ali Oyen, he was worried that being away so long, he would have succumbed to be with a guy. So Ra'o fanecha lo filolti. I didn't expect to see your face without a tinge of green. And if it would be, then you must have had the brew Iker, and then you wouldn't be able to have children. And yet, v'hinei hera elikim games aracha. So that means that you never sinned, and that you're pure, and that you're indeed Yosef HaTzadik. Vayehi yemei Yaakov shnei chayav sheva shanim v'arbam u'ma'ashana. The years of Yaakov were 147. Now, all the Avos were supposed to live till 180. Yitzchak indeed lived till 180. Avram lived till 175 because he passed away 5 years early in order not to see Esav go l'tar b'sra, which, by the way, is such a tremendous lesson, how we have to feel for those families that have children off the derech. Avram Avinu passed away 5 years in order not to see his grandson, not his son, but his grandson, go off the derech. Death is preferable, even with Avram, what Avram accomplished every day. You know what 5 years of Avram's life is? Every day. Avram Zaken Ba Bayamim, he used every day, he came with every day. And it should be no surprise, because the Gemara says, Kasher tar b'sra b'seich beisei shel adam, yoisem mimilchamas gog u'magog. That a wayward child in a person's house is worse than World War III. Or World War IV, whatever it's going to be. Milchamas gog u'magog, which is the worst world war. All 70 nations against the Yidden. But the turmoil, the inner turmoil, that's in a family when there's a child that's a tar b'sra, that's off the derech, that doesn't dress with sneers, that's mechalel Shabbos barabim, that talks heresy. It's such a hardship. We have to know that, to feel for people, to daven for people, to be compassionate of people, not to chas v'shalom judge them. Yaakov didn't live till 180. He fell short 33 years, 147. So there's one pshat because he said to Paro, and he complained, Ma'at v'ram yemei shnei chaye, and there was 33 words there from where Paro asked him the question, which was also that he aged and he grew prematurely old because of the way he was misnag, that the time was evil. So he lost 33 years. That's, of course, a very high level for a tzaddik. But we're not going to talk about that pshat now. We're going to talk about the Balaturim's pshat. The Balaturim says, because he inadvertently cursed Rachel Imenu, because he told Lavan, Im asher timtza Elohecha lo yichya. If we find the truffin by somebody, they will not live. Now Yaakov was sure that in his family nobody took the truffin. Right? So inadvertently, Rachel, who took the truffin, that's why she passed away. The Seder Hadayra said she passed away at the young age, Le'aleinu, 36 years old. She passed away at 36. Here people were living into the late hundreds, and she passed away at 36. So because he said, Im asher timtza Elohecha lo yichya, and he used lo yichya, not to live. He didn't say that they should get punished, but lo yichya. So yichya is Gematria 33, and therefore Yaakov lost 33 years of his life. Ay, ay, ay. But Yaakov was so sure that he could say this, because he was so sure that nobody would do such a thing in his household without asking him. And indeed, it's brought down that one of the reasons why Rachel Imenu was punished is because she should have asked Yaakov. Why is she doing this without talking to her husband? You know, it says an Isha Kasher Eiser Etzaim Bala, but one of the facets, one of the behaviors of a good wife is, if it's something critical, she first talks it over with her husband. And look at the fallout. She would die young, and Yaakov would lose 33 years of his life, both because she didn't take the time to talk to her husband. She did it on her own. Now that's a very That's a very costly payment. To lose a Rachel Imenu at 36, to lose 33 years of Yaakov's life. Now the Torah teaches this of us. Remember, the Torah is not a history book. When the Torah teaches us things, it doesn't say anything about that Avraham Avinu was put in the Kivshin Eish, in the furnace, even though that makes for dramatic writing. It says Ur Kazdim, Nimrod was called Amrafel, Amarpel, but it doesn't say it because the Torah only says what the Torah wants us to emulate. The Torah doesn't want us to emulate Avram, who provoked Nimrod and destroyed his father's idols. It was only for that time, because Avram Avinu had to introduce the belief of one God to the whole world. He was Avram Ivri. But if the Torah is telling us that Rachel Imenu lost her life because she didn't consult her husband before doing this, and it caused also that Yaakov would lose 33 years of his life. 33 years. It teaches us how important it is. Don't do it on your own. And then later on, your husband says, it's such a mess. Why didn't you talk to me? Didn't you realize that it could involve me also? Why didn't you talk to me beforehand? A wife is supposed to talk to her husband beforehand. Now there's another reason that's brought down, and that is because Rachel generated tremendous pain for her father. Now, of course, she had many reasons to do this. She was trying to make her father better. They were leaving now. She wanted to try to make her father better, and she knew that the Trophim told the future, and they were escaping, so she didn't want the Trophim to tell Lavan where they were going. She had all kinds of reasons, but she generated tremendous pain in the parent. You could have great reasons, but you don't generate pain in a parent. Dama ben Nesina gave up, and this is used in the Gemara as an example of Ha'ad Heichon Kibbud Aveim. He gave up $600,000 because he didn't want to wake up his father. The father had the key to the chest under his pillow. He didn't want to wake up his father. And the Mefarshim say because that's tsar. To wake up a father is tsar. And he didn't want to cause his father tsar. Never, even if we have great reasons, to cause a parent tsar is a very, very serious business. Now, as I'm bringing up the topic of Kibbud Aveim, I think I want to share with you the power and how Kibbud Aveim is highly volatile. We could put a skull and bones on Kibbud Aveim, 20,000 volts. How one has to be careful. We know that the Me'amloi says, Kabed esavicha ve'esimecha l'man yarichun yomecha, honor your father and mother, in order that you should live long. And everybody asks, but we're supposed to serve Hashem. Shaloi al manas l'kabel pras. We don't serve Hashem. We serve Hashem because we want to do the Rebbeinu Shalom's will. He's our commander-in-chief. We don't do it just to get lollipops. And why does the Torah say this? So the Me'amloi says, Mechlal hein ata shemei alav. From the positive, you infer the negative. That if you don't do it, chas v'shalom, it's the other way around. It shortens life, lo yaleinu. Kibbud Aveim is extremely dangerous business. That's why it says, it's brought down that parents should always be meichel their children. No parent wants a child. You're going to be upset with your children. How could they do this? But at the end of the day, we don't want our children to suffer because of us. So we should always constantly be meichel our children. But they say over from Reb Chaim Kanievsky that Kibbud Aveim is a very serious business. He says that we should know that it's very reciprocal. The way we treat our parents, that's the way our children will treat us. So if we treat our parents that we don't have time for them, and with indifference, and we never call, and then we expect to get nachas from our children, we're looking at roads of disappointment. And then he said over a Maisa with the Chazanish, which is even scarier. The Chazanish, in his day, there was a son that Mamish was not Mechabed the father. He didn't treat the father properly. When the father died, shortly afterwards the son died. The Chazanish said, Tzav Kosh Brachas Kusi Yogan Aleinu made a comment that the father called the son to a din Torah in Shemayim, and that's why the son died. So we have to be very careful with Kibbud Av V'Ein. On the other hand, the opportunity to achieve greatness when one works on Kibbud Av V'Ein is equally incredible. Now, there's a Gemara in Sukkah. The Gemara says, we all know that Reb Shimon ben Yochai and his saintly son, the venerable Reb Shimon ben Yochai with his son Elazar, were in the cave for many, many years learning Torah. Reb Shimon ben Yochai said that I could exempt the whole world from punishment in my merit. Then he said, if I'm joined together with my son Elazar, we could exempt the whole world from the time of creation till now. And then he says, and if we take together with us, if we join with us Yosem ben Uziyahu, then we could remove punishment from the whole world from the beginning of time till the end of time. Till the end of time, even generations like us with all the sins of technology and everything. Who was this Yosem ben Uziyahu? We know that Yosem's father, Uziyahu, was a king, and he was a wicked king. He was a wicked king. It says that he built a mizbeach just to be his own mizbeach, and although he wasn't a kayin, he wanted to be makriv, a carbon on the mizbeach. So you can imagine, you're talking about a person that was a very big Rasha. But when he came to bring the carbon, his body was covered with saras, broke out with saras, and he had to be sent out from the 3 camps, and he had to abdicate the throne. He had to step down from the throne. Yosem took over. But, even though his father was wicked, all the lifetime of his father, he refused to call himself king, and whenever he made a decree, he made sure to say, my father Uziyahu said we should issue this edict. So even under the most hard circumstances, because people say, yeah, well, for me, Kibbud Av V'Ein is very difficult. My parents do this, my parents do that. Even under the hardest circumstances, he still practiced tremendous Kibbud Av V'Ein. And so you'll say, okay, very good, he's going to get Olam Haba for it. No! Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said that with him we could remove sin from the entire world from now until the end of time. So we have to know, when Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer says Kibbud Av V'Ein is the hardest mitzvah, we have to know that if we're looking, sometimes people look for a stock to invest in. If only I know which stock. I should have invested in Moderna. I should have invested in Pfizer. They're making vaccines. The stock is going up, right? People want to invest in a stock. You want to invest in a stock that's good for this world. And it's good for the next world. And it's good l'neitzach netzachim. That's Kibbud Av V'Ein. L'man yarichon yamecha u'l'man yitav lach. Now, Yaakov addresses the Shevet of Yisachar, the Shevet of Torah. V'nei Yisachar yoidei bina le'itim. They understood the time. So this means, of course, that they understood the difficult parsha of the intercalating the new year, which was the deepest parts of the Torah. But it also means Yodei Bina Le'itim. They knew how to use time. Itim is time. They knew how to use time. We call the Yom Tov Shavuos Shabai Eis. In it is the meaning of time. So the pasuk says Yisachar Chamar Garem. Yisachar is like a bony donkey. Raivetz Bein HaMishpasayim. Doesn't go sleep in the stable. It sleeps in between the tchumim of the cities that it's traveling to. Vayar Menucha Ki Tov. He saw that rest was good for Eretz Ki Na'ema, and the land was sweet. Vayet Shechmai Lizbal, and he bent down his shoulder to shoulder the burdens. Vayila Mas Ayved, and he worked like under a taskmaster, and he took the job to do. So the question is, if he saw Menucha Kitayv and the Aretz Ki Na'ema, if he saw rest is good and the land is sweet, then he should go to Florida. Then he should go to the Riviera. Why did he bend his shoulder to accept the oil of Torah? This is a kasha that everybody asks. And many of the Mefarshim in unison say that the Vayar Menucha Kitayv Va'aretz Ki Na'ema is not referring to this world. He saw that true Menucha is in the next world. And so therefore, Vayet Shechmai Lizbal, therefore he bent his shoulder to take the oil of Torah. And he set himself to the task of learning Torah. And Pshat is as follows, that the Yisachar is Yesh Schar. Yesh, of course, refers to Shai. At the end of Shas, it says that every tzaddik will get Shai Olamos, 310 worlds. So Yisachar is Shai Schar. He saw that there was tremendous Schar. He saw, but there's a lot of distractions in this world. A lot of Geschmack Sachen. There's a lot of places to go. There's a lot of things to see. Today, in our world, people could sit at home. They have a dilemma. Do they go to shiurim? Do they work hard on learning? Or do they sit in front of a computer and enjoy the latest shows? And there are shows that are made. They're made especially to relax a person, take them to worlds that are exciting, that are fun, that are beautiful, people that don't have around them a lot of people. On the shows, there's interaction between interesting people. They can live vicariously in these worlds. It's a very seductive thing. It's a very big thing. So what did Yisachar do? So they say a wonderful mashal that there was a big man in jewelry, and he traveled to Hong Kong to, this was before they had planes. He traveled to get diamonds and gems, and he purchased whatever he was able to. And on his last day, a man came over to him with a towel, and he said, I need to make money quickly. I have merchandise that you've never seen before. The man says, I'm sorry, I used up all the money for this trip. I'd love to deal with you, but I only have money to get back on the boat. I travel first class. I have $3,000 with me, and it's for the next 2 weeks to get home. I'm sorry. So the man says, you just got to take a look. And the man opens up the towel, and this businessman, who was very, very astute at diamonds and gems, saw stones that he never beheld before. It was a Hein Rav. And the man said to him, how much do you want from it? So he says, look, I'll give it to you all for $2,500. So the man thought to himself, this stuff that he's showing me is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. What would have to be, this was before credit cards, and what would have to be is he would have to travel home in third class. Now, third class, he usually travels up in fancy cabins and eating the most delicious cuisine, and now he's going to have to go down, be stopped in for 2 weeks and get bread and water and be hardly able to sleep. But look what he's getting. So he bought it, and he traveled in third class. And it was hard. But every time it was hard, he took out the towel and he looked at the stones, and that fortified him. And that's the meaning of this pasuk. Yisachar realizes that there's going to be endless nitzchias of a life of Torah. It's 120 years here, but there's going to be trillions of years of enjoying the unsurpassed, endless hanas of the next world. Vayar minucha kitayv. He saw that the rest, the perfect rest of the olam shekulay toiv, v'esaretz kina'ema, and the future which is sweet. Vayechi Gems lismal, and that gives him, that fortified him to be able to be savil. And that's how Bereshis is barasa shai. You have to remember Hashem created shai. Bereshis is b'shvil Torah shenikra Bereshis. But how do we do it? Because barasa shai. That's why the Gemara says, the Medrash says, why did the Torah start with a beis? Because Amar Reb Yehuda, because there's beis olamas, there's two worlds. You have to know about the next world. You have to see that in front of you in order to fortify yourself. I'm going to go a step further. There's a Zayar on this pasuk. The Zayar says that if you translate the pasuk simply, Vayar menucha kitayv, a person sees rest is geshmak. Oh, we're going to go out to the Daf Yomi, they're learning Tumah V'Tara. Dirshu, they're learning about the laws of Erevin now. I'm not putting up Erevin. Let me sit home, I'm going to have a coffee, I'm going to take it easy. He wants to succumb to a life of relaxation. Says the Zayar, what does the Rabbeinu Shalom do? Oh, the Rabbeinu Shalom says if you're going to sit like that, then you're going to be liable to be punished for bittul Torah. The only thing I could do for you is I'm going to raise all your tuitions, and I'm going to break your boiler and your transmission, and your kids are going to need root canal. And Vayechi Gems, now you're going to go out to have to take 3 jobs, so it won't be bittul Torah. So don't do that. Kol hama'ava mimenu ol Torah. Then they give him all kinds of other problems, all derech eretz. The Admor Ma'ozerov told a different pshat in this pasuk to the Chazon Ish. And it says the Chazon Ish praised this. I heard it once, the Admor Ma'ozerov and the Admor Mashleg. I'm not sure if they're the same person, but I heard this from both of these Admorim telling it to the Chazon Ish. That asking again, what's pshat in this pasuk? That vayar menucha kitayv. If you see menucha, that's good. But pashas, it means in this world. V'esaretz kina'ema. So why did Yisachar learn Torah? So the Admor Me'azer of Zech Tzaddik L'Bracha told the Chazon Ish, Zech Tzaddik L'Bracha, the tzaddikim zechusim yagam aleinu, that it says in this world, kol chelav la'Hashem. We're supposed to give the best, the cream to Hashem. So Yisachar saw that vayar menucha kitayv, rest is hazoi sweet. It's hazoi zis to come home and to take it easy and to relax. It's sweet. Va'aretz kina'ema, and to travel to the Riviera, that's great. What did he do? He gave that to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Vayechi Gems. And you should know that this is a very, very, very encouraging thing. If a person thinks, what I'm giving up, there are people that they binge on shows. or they play games for hours. And a person says, I'm giving this up. Yes, I'm giving that to Hashem. That's my matana to Hashem. Kol chelev la Hashem. And instead I'm learning Torah. Hashem is going to reward me, mida keneged mida, when we get to the next world after 120 years. That Yisachar yesh schar. The Al-Shech HaKadosh, in the same vein, says, Yisachar chamor garam. What Yisachar is yesh schar. This tremendous reward. Why? Because chamor garam. Chamor is chumrius. The chumrius that he could have, all that materialism he could have chosen. He could have chosen a different way of life and lived the life of Riley. And he didn't. Vayechi Gems. So that's yesh schar, that's the shai schar, because chamor garam, the choice of the chumrius, caused this. There's a sefer B'yois HaBoker. The sefer B'yois HaBoker by Rav Brach. He says that we know that the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, is Samoil, Samkel, poison of God. So he says that learning, the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kuf Daled says learning is represented by the letter Aleph. Aleph, it says Aleph Beis Gimel Daled, Aleph Bina Gomel Dalim. Learn understanding and be benevolent to the poor, the ABCs of Yiddishkeit. He says in Samuel there's an Aleph. And if we learn, we knock out the Aleph of Samuel. That's what it says in Pagavach Menuvel Zeh. If this Menuvel meets up with you, Mashchei Lebeis HaMedrash. Yetzer Hara, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavimah. So the Aleph of learning knocks out the Aleph of Samuel. And then Vayhi Lamas Oived. Then to the contrary, then the Yetzer Hara works for us. This is a Zayah. The Zayah says that a person is created. We just learned it in the Chak. By the way, if anybody wants to learn with me the Chak, which I do a few shiurim a week, and we have now on Torah anytime and on Kol HaLashon already, the Chak for Bereshis Noach Lech Lecha Vayerech HaYisara Toldos and Vayetze. I'm doing Vayishlach now. And if you're not familiar with Chak is, it's a discipline where the Arizal created 6 separate learnings per day, and the Chidah added another 2. So it's a little bit of Chumash and Rashi, a little bit of Navi, a little bit of Ksuvim, and then there's a full parak of Mishnayos, and a piece of Gemara, a Zoyar, and then the Chidah added Musar and Halacha. So in the recent Zoyar, the Zoyar says that Ki Malach of Yitzava, Ki Malach of Yitzava L'shmorcha B'chol Drachecha. Those malachim are the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. The Yetzer Hara is on the right of your heart. The Yetzer Tov is on the right of your heart. The Yetzer Hara is on the left. And they each try to sway you. If your Yetzer Tov overwhelms your Yetzer Hara, then the Zohar says the Yetzer Hara also serves you. That's why it says Ki Malachav in the plural. Yitzava. And Rabbi Nishon has both malachim. So we can make our Yetzer Hara our friend, our protector. And that's Pshat. Yisachar chamor garam, right? And he learned Torah, and that's why it says Vayhi Lamas Oived. Instead of Samuel, we knocked out the Aleph, and then Lamas, the Samuel himself becomes a worker for us and protecting us. It says that Yisachar chamor garam roived speina mishpasayim. And I saw in the Mefarshim that Roivei Tzpein HaMishpasayim refers to the fact that the person of Torah decides to sleep Bein HaMishpasayim, between the borders, between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. He sleeps in the grave after 120. Right? The grave is then a place of rest, a place of menucha. That's what it says, that for the tzaddik, the grave is also a pleasant place. It says, B'shach b'cha, when you're lying in the grave, Tishmar alecha, the Torah will guard over you. We say that in every siyum. when Yehuda is being blessed by Yaakov, it says, Uleven shinayim mecholov. The pasture land will be so good and so lush that the animals that graze will produce such milk that your teeth will be white from the quality of the milk. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, in a very critical Gemara in Ksuvas Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, tells us that Al Tikrei Levain Shinayim Mechalav, Ela Libun Shinayim Mechalav. And that means that it's more important to show the white of your teeth than to give somebody a cup of milk. A mother in the morning serving her children gives them a cup of drink. Drink up your milk. It's very nice. But smiling at the children is more important than giving them a cup of milk. A smile is such a builder of men, a builder of women. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, he had a hard life. He said, Dengar Madi Asira Bir. This is the bone of my 10th child that I buried. But the fact that we have a hard life cannot excuse us from smiling at people. Smiling at people is a big gift to give people. Now, I mentioned this, although this is a very familiar drasha, but I mentioned this because this has very, very strong corona undertones. Because as we're still struggling with corona, and now there's a talk, while we're awaiting vaccination, there's a talk of another strain that's 70% more infectious, which is very scary for people, especially that are older. People are still dying. Many people are still dying and getting very sick and having a hard time breathing. And people that are immune suppressed. So people, many wise people are wearing masks. When you wear a mask, so not only aren't we able to shake people's hands anymore and give a good Shabbos and have that contact, that warmth, but we can't even smile at people because we have a mask on. So therefore, being aware of this, we have to do things instead. That's always the challenge of life. When one thing doesn't work, then you have to replace it with something else. And the way to, instead of a smile, you have to say warm words to people. So how are you? It's so good to see you. And it's so necessary during Corona because, there are people that are afraid. They don't go out unless it's necessary. And they're missing the normal interaction with the butcher and the grocer. It gets delivered in front of the house, curbside pickoff. They're missing going out to a pizza shop, a coffee shop. They're missing just going out for walks on Shabbos afternoon and talking to people. They run out of shul right away and social distancing. So we have to know we have to replace it with talking to people. We have to replace it by calling people because, if people don't have social interaction, either companionship or Rahman al-Tzon, it's a slow death. Especially people that are alone and older singles. We had a dedication tonight for the older singles, widows, people that are older, that are home alone and are afraid. Call them up and talk to them. It's so important, and it's a fulfillment of this. It's more than milk. Before we go on to the final thoughts of the shir, again, we do not have a sponsor for next week. So number one, I want to offer, like I did last week, I didn't get any calls for this, but it is if there are people that tell me, Rabbi Weiss, you used to give your shir on Tuesday, now you're giving it on Thursday. I like to have it earlier in the week, so I'm recording it earlier on the week also, so that I could send it out digitally to people who subscribe. So if you want to subscribe to get the shir digitally towards the beginning of the week, it's $26 a month, and every week you'll get it in your email. If you're interested in that service, 718-916-3100, 718-916-3100. And because of that, I now need the dedications early in the week so I could put it also on this digital that I send to my subscribers. So if you would like to, this share is heard by a lot of people every week in 180 countries, and it's heard on TorahAnytime.com, Kololoshin, Facebook, to my digital subscribers. Eventually, the next year on TorahAnytime.com. If you'd like to sponsor the share, either text me at 718-916-3100, you could WhatsApp me, or email me at rmmwsi@aol.com, Rabbi Moshe Mewai, Staten Island, at aol.com. Also, I want to invite you to my Zoom Daf Yomi, which is 7:45 every night of the week, including Tu Blat Motzei Shabbos at 7:45. Go on your computer. Don't call my phone. You have to go on your computer, go on your cell phone to zoom.com on the internet, zoom.com, simple zoom.com, and then put in my meeting ID, which is my cell phone, 718-916-3100, and we'd love to have you as we learn the very fascinating Masechta of Psachim. It says, Naftali ayola shlucha. Naftali is like a hart, a swift deer, gazelle, sent out, hanosein imrei shofer, who delivers beautiful words. So the Heilige Maggid Mikoznitz, Zech Tzav Kosher Brachos Chusi Yogan Aleinu, says that there is over here opposing forces. On the one hand, Naftali is the quick person. He's the quick person. Naftali ayola shlucha. He's the quick person that is always desirous, and he gets everywhere quickly. But even though he has this natural haste, when it comes to davening, he works on himself, goes against his nature, and is hanoisei nimrei shofer, and who says beautiful words, and says beautiful tefillos. And the Maggid Mikoznitz says that because he works on himself in this way, that's why he was given the historical, incredible Peiros Ginoisa, the most sweet-tasting, incredible fruit in Eretz Yisrael, to make a bracha on. When a person works against their natural haste and slows themselves down to daven to Rabbeinu Shalom, then that has tremendous results, says the Maggid Mikoznitz. You find that in the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah says that if somebody resists saying Kriya Shema fast, and he slows down the heat of the haste in his body, in that merit, after 120, the Rabbeinu Shalom will be mitzanin in Gehenna, will cool down the fire of Gehenna, because he cooled down the fire of his haste to say Kriya Shema slowly. And by the way, this is true, and not just in this midah. You know, there could be a person that by teva is very punctual. By teva, that's his teva, to be punctual. But he doesn't make others feel rigid around him. So he's going against his natural teva. That's very valuable, says the Maggid Mikoznitz. Now, on Naftali Ayola Shlucha, Anoisen Imrei Shofer, the Rishon, the Paneach Raza, says as follows: Naftali Ayola Shlucha, he's sent out on missions because nobody stops him. Nobody interferes with him. He gets along with everybody. Why? Because Anoisen Imrei Shofer. Because whoever he sees, he greets. And a person that whoever he sees greets and is mekabel kol adam b'sever panim yafas, like we said, with a smile, with a happy word, everybody gets along with that person and nobody gets in his way. It's interesting. The Paneach Raza, which is an early Rishon, says, Naftali ayola shlucha, if you want a job to get done and you want to send somebody who nobody will get in their way, nobody will try to stop him, send Naftali. Because Hanoisen Imrei Shofer, he always has a nice word to tell people. And since he always has a nice word to tell people, nobody will get in his way. That's a very big insight on how to get along with people. I'll conclude with what I saw in the Ayil Tarog. Rav Steinman asks, it says that in the Medrash that Yisachar will be awarded 200 times for his learning, but Naphtali will be rewarded 1,000 times because Naphtali learned B'tzar. So Rav Steinman, Zech Tzadik L'Bracha, Schus Yagan Aleinu, asks, Naphtali is so praised for his Torah, why is it that we don't hear anything about Naphtali as being a Shevet of Torah? We talk about Levi as a Shevet of Torah, Yisachar, the Yehuda, that the Mechaykek will come from Yehuda, the lawgiver. We don't hear anything about Naphtali. It's an interesting question. Rav Steinman answers, Naphtali, his learning, his B'tzar, is so valued to Hashem that Hashem allows it to remain hidden. It shouldn't be, so to speak, tarnished by being mefursum. Amazing thing. So they asked him, but what about the Chafetz Chaim, Reb Kiv Eger, Reb Chaim Oizer? They were all known, right? So he said, yes, but they generation needed them. He says, but they tried whatever they could to ward off the Torah from them. And he said, we find that Mordechai was demoted because he got the pirsum from rescuing Klal Yisrael. He was moted in the batting order, so to speak, of the Anshe Knesset Agdala. And then he said, it's known that during the time of the Gra, there was a dibuk that said there were 36 tzaddikim that the world exists because of, the Lamed Vovniks we call them, and the Gain would have been number one. But because he was so known, he was demoted to number two. And of course, Rav Steinman said the Gain didn't do anything that he should be mefursam. But even so again, we see that la'anovim yitein chen, the greatest chen is to those that are of a humble nature, and if we get a chance to meet such people, it's good to get infected by them. It's good to learn from their tiferes. It says the tiferes of the midas is anava. Rabbi say this is such a full parsha. This year only is like a little bit of a whet your appetite to dig into this parsha. There's so much here in this parsha to learn, the discussion of the Avos and Ephraim and Menashe, and there's so much to learn about Yosef. So I want to thank you, as always, for joining the share. Please let other people know about it. And if you want to sponsor, 718-916-3100. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful Shabbos.